Hey everyone, my name is Nick Worker. Thank you for attending our 2024 Law Firm Summer Reboot Camp. Our panel recast will begin in just a moment. Before it does, I just wanted to let you know a little bit about the camp's host, Answering Legal. For those not already familiar, Answering Legal is a 24/7 virtual receptionist service that exclusively works with the legal industry. Whenever lawyers can't get to the phone, our highly trained receptionist team is there to make sure they never miss the new client. Answering Legal now even integrates with your favorite legal softwares and provides a free mobile app. As a thank you for registering for our camp, we're giving you a special free trial offer of Answering Legal, which includes an additional $300 off of services. To take advantage of this offer, visit answeringlegal.com, book a discovery call with our team, and just let us know you registered for our summer camp. Now, without further ado, let's get to our panel discussion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Answering Legal's 2024 Law Firm Summer Reboot Camp. My name is Mathew Kerbis, your guest host for this panel. I'm the subscription attorney. I talk all things subscription legal services, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know these panelists over the years, all of whom have been on my podcast, Law Subscribed. But enough about me. Let me just say that now, as explained earlier, all of today's panels, this was explained before this panel started, I think on the first panel today, at the camp will be law office management focused for the day. And, you know, this is law office management focused, but it's also so much more than that because we're deep diving on subscription legal services. So joining me for this conversation today is Kimberly Bennett, Jess Birken, and Brandon Leopoldus. And we're going to hear from them in a second so we can learn more about each of them directly from the panelists today. Standard disclaimer, nothing is legal advice or ethics advice. Everything is just for educational and entertainment purposes only. And with that, for quick self-intros, I'll kick it over to Kim first. Kim, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Kimberly Bennett. I am founder of K. Bennett Law and as well as co-founder of Fidoo, and I love all things subscription legal services. I've been doing this for close to 15 years at this point and learned a lot about why I wanted to stop billing by the hour, lost a ton of money, six figures upwards. I stopped counting at some point, and I realized I had to do it a better way. So I'm excited to be here to share the journey, share why I moved to this model, and also share my founder story moving into becoming a tech co-founder to support subscription and flat fee law firms to deliver on this model.
All right. Thanks, Kim. And thanks for being here. Jess, you're up.
Hey guys, I am Jess Birken. I'm a lawyer in Minnesota. I help nonprofits. So think church, pet rescue, youth athletic league, and I'm basically outsourced general counsel for them. And we do that on a subscription and flat fee basis.
All right. Thank you, Jess. Thanks for being here. Brandon, you're up.
Hi there, Brandon Leopoldus, founder of Leopoldus Law, right here in Los Angeles, California. Sports and entertainment attorney, primarily in the sports space. And we realized pretty quickly that especially on the athlete side of things, they often need the same things at the same point in their career. Makes it a lot easier when you can provide them a price and have that ongoing relationship rather than spot check them every once in a while when they think they need something rather than when they actually need something.
Well, I'm thrilled everyone's here, and I think, do we have every time zone? Close to every time zone, I think. Kim, are you still East Coast?
I'm still Eastern, so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. Forgot to say that,
so
too.
I think we're just missing Mountain Time then, because Minnesota's central like me, right, Jess?
Yes.
All right. But in any event, from coast to coast and the Midwest, we've got subscription attorneys of all different flavors here for you today. So Kim, you did mention Fidoo. But what that does and how that helps attorneys who want to use subscription legal services. But for your subscription legal services in particular, what was the practice, or what is the practice area?
Yeah, so I still have I would call it a micro firm or a boutique firm at this point that is an IP focus, but in the past I've done business, IP, and employment, where I sat across my journey.
All right. And I'm general practice transactional and also in that fractional GC space. And so lots of different practice areas today, too. We'll learn about maybe why that does or doesn't matter in having a subscription-based legal services practice. So with that, then, let's learn a little bit about the why, and if you ever had to bill your time before and what it was like to make that transition. So So I think you did touch on this a little bit, Kim, but Kim, did you have to bill your time? And what was it like to make that transition? And why do subscription of all the different fee structures out there?
Yeah, so I did not have to bill my time. I came out of law school straight in-house, and we operated very differently, right? We had internal clients. The tracking of the time wasn't how we track billable. It was more like, what did we do for purposes of completing project or work, or what business unit did we work on for this particular week? But it wasn't tracking time. I came out in '07, market crashed, still had a job, then I needed to change and grow, and I was early in my career. So then I went on my own, and I wasn't forced to. I just was like, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. So I started billing time, and I hated it, and I lost a lot of money over and over again. And it was really hard, and I couldn't get out of cases. And so it was just the why for me was, how can I get paid on time all the time like it was before? How can I reduce this friction that existed between clients? And okay, I collected the retainer, send bill against it. Okay, you have nothing. Can you give me some more? And then they're like, no. And then what do? When they say no, I ideally get out the case. In my case, twice back to back, I couldn't. And I was like, this just can't be it. And so I immediately stopped hourly and went to flat fees. And then I eventually went to subscriptions when I really wanted to eliminate the ebbs and flows of flat fees and that feast or famine piece of it. So that's how I got there.
And Jess, what was your journey from billing hours to subscription like?
Well, Kim and I graduated the same year. So I feel like everybody that graduated in 2007 has these zigzag weird careers because of the Great Recession. So I originally gave up being a lawyer, and I was working in-house at a large nonprofit, and then ended up in partnering with another gal, and then went out on my own. And so, yes, I have billed time. Absolutely. And when I transitioned away from that, it was really because, Brandon said something that was like, we need them to call us early, not when they think they need something. And because I worked inside a nonprofit, I had sort of that same in-house mentality that you get. Like Kim probably understands this, where you're trying to prevent things from happening. You're not trying to have a big dumpster fire. So I brought that orientation to my private practice, and I would just be very frustrated when people would bring me a big on fire burning situation, or we need this purchase agreement reviewed today for closing tomorrow, or whatever. So the light bulb moment for me was, I invited one of my clients. I had an executive director who I just hadn't talked to in a long time, and I was like, hey, I should take her out for coffee. I emailed her, said, hey, would love to take you out for coffee. And she asked if there would be a bill. And I was like, whoa, okay. My clients are literally, they don't even want to talk to me because they're worried about that 6-minute increment. Mm-hmm. And that really was a light bulb moment for me, where I realized I need to do something different so that my clients are reaching out to me proactively as often as they need to, which I know is going to lead to more work, and it's going to keep them in a better place. So the first year I transitioned, I was running 2 business models for a year. I was billing time, and I had a subscription. And when every client came in, I offered them a retainer agreement that was like, choose your own adventure. This is what hourly billing looks like. This is what the subscription looks like. And after 12 months, literally no new client had ever chosen hourly billing. And so the market was like, we don't want that. And so I left hourly billing behind at that point.
It's amazing when you give people the option of pricing certainty versus how long is it going to take? I don't know, and what they're going to pick, right? Brandon, your journey, tell us about it.
Yeah, so it seems like I was a little after you guys. In 2010, I graduated, and so we were in the doldrums, right? Firms closing on a Tuesday afternoon. It was terrible. So, for us, it was, I went and worked at a firm. It was a litigation only shop. Of course, all I had to do was input my time, and I didn't care because it wasn't my company. But then when I started my own firm, I started to realize that oftentimes the type of clients we have are not typically the ones that are going to have a built-in retainer, or that want to pay $500 an hour for us to review something, right? They might have an agent. They might have other people involved. They may have enough savvy to get themselves into a deal that's good, but not understand how to get out of it. And so, like Jess had talked about there, I want them to call me all the time. I don't want them to be afraid of how much is this going to cost. And so we kind of rolled out a subscription base for certain clients that was early in their career, because we knew that not a lot of people, and this is still true, have gone through a draft process. And so, nobody knows what to do when you first get drafted by an NFL team other than follow directions. And when there's a problem, kind of deal with it. And that can be difficult when your earning capacity lasts on average 3 years. And so for us, it was, if we can help these guys navigate that and they don't have the problems that other guys do because they don't have that resource, let's do that. Even if it's at a lower, what appears to be a lower price point, we realized that for our business model, it was better because instead of having a client for, say, $2,000 one time, now we have a client for, say, $12,000 over the course of a year, and they get more benefit than probably we would, because we may have a lower return on the actual hourly amount, but we're going to save on the marketing cost. We're going to save on all this other stuff. We're going to have a much longer client life cycle. And it just seemed to make sense for everybody.
So there's a lot of different ways we could go here, and hopefully we get to cover everything. But I do want to sort of touch on what you were just talking about, Brandon, and even Jess too. So like the whole people contacting us before there's a problem or when the problem's still small. That's like the massive value of the subscription model, right? The problem that I've found, and I've been doing this the least amount as everybody. I certainly talk about it a heck of a lot, but I mean, I graduated in 2014, and I've been talking about it for 5 years. I've only had a subscription-based law firm for 2.5. I find it's hard to sell problem avoidance, right? So in all of the combined decades of experience, what are we? Some traditional law firm on this panel? We have a combined, 50 years of legal experience, because that means anything,
right?
But in our combined experience, like what have been some of the lessons learned from this problem of selling problem avoidance rather than selling problem solving? And Kim, we'll start again with you.
Oh, they were gonna start with them. I would say I'm not selling problem avoidance, right? Like, I think that's part of it, right? So running the subscription for many years, and my journey to it was mine, and then coaching and training others to do the same, and then having Fidu. And between mine, the coaching, and Fidu, what I found is that you don't want to sell the avoidance. You want to sell the opportunity. You want to sell the future. You want to sell the goals and what that client is looking for. So a lot of times when I'm talking about subscription, it's how do we place ourselves into that client's journey? You hear in marketing, it's the same thing. How do we place ourselves in their journey and make us a part of their end goal, right? Because Brandon's talking about, these players aren't just coming in, they're making a ton of money. They want to be able to have that money extend for a long time. They want to take care of family members. They don't want to have all the head trauma that comes with it. So you're not talking about simply, let me help you get the best contract. You're focusing, and in my practice, it's focusing on building the brand, creating a legacy, growing a brand that gets on shelves, right? They don't care about the trademark. They don't care about the contract. If they could avoid that crap, hell, if all of us can avoid that crap, we would. But it's a means to an end. And what's their bigger goal is what I sell, right? And I focus on the client's journey, their goals, what do they want to achieve in the next, because we're relationship driven and not transactional, I'm talking 5 years out. I'm not talking even a year out. I'm going to talk about a year out, but we're going to go further to help them understand that legal touch is so much more than what they think of. And I say, as an industry, we've done a grave disservice to make ourselves very transactional and to make ourselves very reactionary, when indeed there's so many things that we can help reduce and extend opportunities. So that's how I approach it, right? Forget about the problem solving. Yes, it's part of it. Yes, I touch on it. Yes, we support that. But I want to focus them on what their big goals are and how we support them in achieving that.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. I talk a lot about treating the whole patient, right? Especially with nonprofit clients, they are scrounging and scraping together legal advice from Uncle Larry and somebody on the board, and they're dentist kid who will look at nobody has the whole picture. So I sort of tell people, you think of me as like your family practice doctor. Now, I'm not a litigator. I'm not an employment lawyer. I'm going to refer you out to specialists from time to time, but I know you and I know all of your people and I know your culture and I know why this matters, not just whether the terms of the contract are good, but it's like forming that relationship is some of the biggest value. Just we have to divorce ourselves from the idea that an estate lawyer sells a piece of paper, that like printing it on fancy bond is what the client is paying for. That's not what they're paying for, right? They're the people I know who do subscription in the estate planning world. They're paying for the certainty of having this person take care of their family when they're gone, right? And having that relationship with them over time.
Yeah, that's really what it is. And I think Kimberly's right. You can't necessarily sell the avoidance piece of it, because it's like selling insurance. Nobody really wants to buy insurance. Apologies to all of my insurance lawyers out there, that what they're really looking for is something that they have to do. But with us, we say, hey, look, here's all the things you're going to need. And a lot of these things, news alert, aren't legal based, right? No wide receiver is worried about their family trust that we're not going to write anyway. We're going to refer them out. But they are totally unaware that it might be something that they're going to need. What they are aware is that they're going to need to get a car. They're going to buy that chain. They're going to buy a house for mom and make themselves feel good, not realizing that it might not be a great investment. And their financial advisor, their CPA, may not tell them that. And their banker certainly won't. So when we have that on one of our sales items there, when we're talking to guys, is like a 12-month calendar of here's kind of what we would cover in a typical calendar time. And for the NBA guys or the NFL guys, it's a little different. But then they start to see, wait a minute, the draft is coming up. He's going to handle some things there. The next month, here's the itinerary. And then the following month, here's the itinerary. And then we start talking about how we're going to bring those other people involved, because a lot of them don't have the other service providers, but we have those networks. And we're not going to guarantee anybody. It's not like we're sending everybody to one person. We want to get them that exposure to those industries so we can grow, like Jess is talking about, that family practitioner. The longer you're with somebody, they understand who you are and what your tendencies are. And so a family doctor knows that you drink too much Coca-Cola, or that every time he says stop eating those burritos in the middle of the night, you're not going to listen. And so you can work some trauma around that, right? And so that's kind of what we try and do with our athletes, is schedule those regular phone calls as well, which oftentimes result in a FaceTime message where I'm seeing the roof of their car while they're driving down the highway and not talking a lot. But for us, we want that regular contact, and that's just built into the whole system. And that's what we're giving them, is the reassurance that we're not going to have something fall through the cracks, at least on our watch.
I mean, I forgot how amazing of a panel I had assembled, and so I'm going to stop calling on people, because like that's like for like panels that people don't know what they're doing. I'm going to have to, if anything, stop you guys from talking over each other. So no more calling on folks. Out of that conversation, I'm hearing that two valuable parts of having and this ongoing relationship with your client as their attorney in whatever niche practice area you're in is your. To Kim's earlier point, you're actually doing some educating for them, right? They don't know what legal touch is, so you're like issue spotting, like, and there's value there, but you don't normally. No person would pay someone by the billable hour for issue spotting, and we're this concierge service. So, like, even if it's not outside of our practice area, because those are questions I get a lot, right? Well, like, what are they actually? How do you define your subscription benefits? Well, one of them could be like this concierge service or this issue spotting. Of course, how you sell that to your client, is a whole other thing. So, talk more about like that side of this. Isn't what what would be traditionally acceptable as billable time, but there's still value there. Like, what other things like that have you seen in your own practice or in others?
You were going to have to call on somebody.
Well, I'll jump in on that. I think for us, it's, again, most of the time the legal stuff that we're going to do is that means to an end, right? Getting an LLC set up so their off-field income, for example, is taxed at a much lower rate than their on-field income as a high-paid employee. That's a great thing to have. Their CPA is going to tell them to do it, and that's nice. But that's that transactional relationship that every lawyer kind of has, especially if you're doing, corporate setup. maybe you're doing the work afterwards, but for small companies, they're just looking for somebody to file those papers.
Mhm.
And from there, then we say, one of my questions is, you're going to need an insurance policy. Let me walk you through what you're kind of looking for in insurance before we even get to who the insurance agent's going to be. And then it's, oh, by the way, let's follow that up. Now you're going to need these 3 or 4 things. Some of it's legal work, some of it's not. But the more we're able to show them, look, we're the industry expert here. You should ask us all the questions. One of the big things we always talk about are we don't charge you for answers to questions. Please call us with the questions. The implementation may cost, but that's why we have that ongoing service because, oh yeah, your CPA is going to like that every month cost rather than have no cost and then a $30,000 bill one month. They hate that, but they do like to see those regular bills where it's easy to budget for those things and they can make a financial plan off of it. So for us, we really try and provide them as much service as we can because I was in baseball for a long time. I know what they're going to need well before they do. And when we can start talking to them well in advance of that, for example, your contract, if you're an NFL player, if you're drafted in like the 3rd or 4th round, it's 3 years long. Well, in year 2, we're going to start talking about, hey, here's what's going to happen if you hit a free agent year. If they don't extend that option to you, we have to do something different. And it shouldn't be a haphazard route when the Rams don't re-sign you. We need to get you somewhere else and in the mentality of here's what's going to happen if you go somewhere else. If you stay, great. We have that plan too. But now all of a sudden we're talking through some things that if we did that on a billable hour, they would not want to see that bill when the Rams re-sign them, right? And instead, it's just part of their natural life cycle. And it also is a really good way to sell them on the continuation of those services because now you've become an indispensable part of their team, whether it's corporate or on a personal side. And really, that's kind of what we want. We want to have fewer clients just to have them longer.
Brandon's getting at the thing that's like the intangible value that is not like it's value-based billing. It's not hourly. What is it worth for Brandon per minute to say those things? Brandon's bringing this massive value to the table, and like the subscription reflects the value of Brandon's team's wisdom, right? It's like same with Kim being able to like think through what are your goals. You might not even be thinking about that, but I've worked with lots of people like you, and I know you need to think about this. That's not an hourly billable thing. For me, I think there are also things, at least in my practice, that I was just giving away. Like people would be like, I don't know, like, okay, I start your nonprofit. I don't know how to have a board meeting. I don't know how to do meeting minutes. I'm not going to charge these people to give them sample meeting minutes. Like, I'm just like, here you go. Like here, So all of the things like that, where it's like, it's just a template. Like you just take it and run with it. I've got a member portal. I put things in there. Right. And so then once you start doing that, you start thinking of like more things you could put in there where it's like, oh, well, I could put this in there too. I could put that in there. So having some of those things that you would feel bad about billing someone for like 2 minutes to send them a template is ridiculous. Now you can turn those into assets that are part of the subscription package. Kim, what do you add?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about it, part of it is like as an industry, we've really focused on hourly as the way to think about everything and all that we do. And when you detach yourself from it, you start really thinking about big picture. What are like the necessary, when I'm designing a subscription, I'm thinking about the journey that I talked about before, and what are the things they need to do and learn about to get them to the place that they want to get to. And I think a lot of the risk avoidance, the early issue spotting, the going through the insurance, those actually could lead to a legal issue. And so if you're going to think about it in that way, I'm always like, hey, let's be preventative. Let's be proactive, because if this blows up, you're in a fire, which is way more expensive, but we can mitigate it. At least you have an informed decision if that fire happens, how you're going to deal with it going into it. But I think it's like thinking about just like Jess is saying, detaching it, focusing on value and understanding that it's about that client's journey. And there are there's experience and knowledge that we can bring to the table that is super valuable, that can help them see things that they didn't see and connect those pieces faster. And I just think as an industry, and I think this is an issue with the bar, this is an issue with the ABA, that we have to, the industry is changing, like it or not, right? The way we think about legal services has to change, and how we approach it and respond to what clients' needs are have been so stagnant. And I mean, I'll just throw it out there. People talk about it all the time, but I feel this all the time. Access to justice is a real thing. We are a failing industry. 70% of legal needs, that's global. You do the research. I keep on having to do it for so many other reasons. The number doesn't change. 70% of legal needs globally, not just US, are not being met. That means we're failing. That means people have so many questions and needs that we're thinking, oh, is this a legal issue? It probably is, because we just haven't even helped them see it, right? And so I just think detaching ourselves from the hourly model and then really thinking about this big journey and providing resources and education and just showing up for the client in a way that's empathetic. And as Brandon, the other words I use a lot is, we're a part of your team. Right? Yeah. I'm a part of your team. I'm a part of your strategic advisors. We can brainstorm, and that helps me do better and provide more services to them. So I'd rather clients call me or message me, do what you need to, because I can then design a better service, a better template, a better FAQ to respond to that client and the 30 other clients that are going to come after them. So yeah.
That's great. I mean, I'm taking something away from this panel. I'm going to stop calling myself a fractional team member. I'm a team member. It's just a fraction of the cost of what a lawyer is going to be. Our lawyer. Fantastic. I get this question all the time. I'm sure you all do too. But if I'm not tracking my time, how do I know if I'm making or losing money? And sort of in response to that, talk about what are you tracking if you're not tracking your time?
I'm tracking my profit margins. I mean, I care about, from a compliance perspective, we're lawyers. I care about making sure, my team is different today, but when I had a different size team, I'm thinking about making sure I'm complying with the law and I'm paying them properly, but that is not what I bill out against, right? I don't care necessarily if it took my team member 2 hours, because we're focusing on efficiency and effectiveness behind the scenes all the time. So what am I tracking? Client being happy, clients referring, clients returning, how long the client is there. Because in the same way it's predictable for the client, it's also predictable for the firm. I have clients, even today, as my little micro firm, that have been with me for close to a decade. Almost as long as I've, maybe half of the time I've been doing this, but that's great. And that's what I'm valuing. That's what I'm looking for. Those same SaaS metrics that big SaaS companies look at. When I started this model years ago, I looked at what other SaaS companies were doing. I'm like, what are y'all doing? How do you make that happen? Okay, what do you care about? I care about churn. I care about what my conversion numbers look like. I care about how much the lifetime, it's called lifetime value, but how much this particular client I will technically make off of them being a client for a certain amount of time. And the longer they stay, the higher that goes up and the more you're willing to show up for them. So I don't track time at all. I could care less about it. What I care about is, can I keep clients there month after month and keep them happy and show up, and then them either refer or stay.
Yeah, same. I think the thing with lawyers is we act like the rest of the world hasn't already figured this out. Every other industry is running themselves like a business, and there are very standard key performance indicators you can look at, a lot of which Kim just identified, right? How long are people staying with you? What's your attrition rate? What's your net promoter score? I am starting to get to the point where I'm actually interested in a cost allocation plan to see what does it cost us to run a subscription for someone, so that I can better understand what my margin is on the subscription. And that to me is I probably should have been doing that from the get, but it's improve a little bit every year, right? First, I had to figure out how the hell to even do a subscription law firm. Now I'm trying to really dial it in and be what is the profit margin on the subscription? Because I also do flat fee engagements. This is a common misconception when I talk about this. Other lawyers will assume that everything is covered by this one monthly rate, and that's not how I run my subscription. There's a base level that's your monthly dues, and then if you need something beyond that, I give them a scope of work, and we do that on a flat fee basis. And so the client still has pricing certainty. And every person that's watching this has probably done a flat fee project and felt the pain of knowing that you are working yourself down to $10 an hour and that you have drastically underpriced this project. So that will help you figure out the pricing in a large part, even if you don't track the time.
Yeah, I'm a little different. I track my time.
Fascinating.
But the reason being is I want to know, and this is for the next few years, I want to see what I'm actually spending on each subscription that we have.
Yeah.
Because some people are going to need a little bit more than others. And instead of just going off that feel, which is terribly accurate sometimes, I want to see kind of where that is to see if my pricing is on or off. Because like both Kimberly and Jess have said, this is a business, right? It's hard to scale a law firm because it's just how many mice do you have running the wheel and how long do their legs last, right? Instead, if we have subscription models, we can do a lot of that. Like if Jess has that, she has that membership portal, you can record a lot of stuff. I use Loom. You can use whatever you want to walk people through those common problems that they have, right? Here's how to do meeting minutes and here's why they're important. That's a great video that you may not have to have 40 phone calls about the same thing for 30 minutes for each client. You can automate a lot of different things, but you're running almost as if you're a tech startup, but you're a law firm, right? The business model for most law firms hasn't changed in 500 years, right? You tell them how much bag of gold you need per hour, and they don't know what that is, but they do understand what a price is, right? The menu pricing at McDonald's or the menu pricing at your law firm has that exact same idea behind it. And everybody likes cost certainty. It's a lot better when you can provide them all of those things that they might want within that. But I have to track my time just to see what it is, right? I'm not going to say that they only get so many hours because I might as well just do an hourly billing. Instead, it's here's what's on the menu, right? If you want to change out, the hamburger for a cheeseburger, maybe it's a little bit more, but this menu price comes for the cheeseburger. You want the cheeseburger price, you want the steak, you want the whatever, we can do those things. And if we do a flat rate here and there, that's fine too. Some people don't want you for that full life cycle as other people. Sometimes they just want to come in and taste the ice cream. So you give them the ice cream cup, right?
I think too, just to kind of go back to that just real quick, if I could, like when I think about billing and billable hour, no. But I think from a costing perspective, there are labor allocations that you're going to make towards doing anything in your business. And if you're treating it like a business, then you will have a bucket of labor that you need to start with. And I guess the upside for me coming from traditional labor and in employment, I did a lot of labor costing at the very beginning of my career. So labor costing should be built in, like Jess said, maybe not in your beginning, but like when I'm working with people and they're trying to like think about it, I'm like, don't make it overcomplicated, right? You have percentages that you want to allocate toward labor costs. And that is what your bucket looks like. And the way you know if you're profitable enough is if you're going above your labor costs, right? It's not billable, it's labor costs. And then that's not the only cost. There's overhead and all those things. But the way I think about it is like a percentage of the total fee that's going to be allocated to labor. And then you create your delivery team, and then you have an understanding of how many resources it's going to take to deliver on this. But if you're designing the subscription well enough, you are putting boundaries on what that looks like month after month and showing up for a client so that you can say, hey, it looks like it's time to activate this project. Because the best way is like services plus projects, right? You have your baseline set of services and then you add on projects. So if you have your subscription like structured in a way that you start saying, okay, we're reaching the edge, you have those conversations with the client. You're like, hey, I think it's time for us to activate a project. It looks like we need to go deeper on that issue. And that's how you also manage. So I don't track time, but I care about labor costs. And I think that's how you would want to switch it to run it like a business.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't track time either, Brandon. So you're seriously outnumbered here.
Totally okay with that. I learned something there because one of those things that we're looking at in any business, whether you're selling widgets or legal services with labor, is you're selling. You have to figure out what those metrics look like, and oftentimes, you start the process of how much you're going to charge for the subscription. and you kind of pick a number out of thin air.
100%.
That's one way to do it. But then it's, what will a client pay and what do you think is fair compared to, and I know when I first started, it was anything and everything you could bring me. And I quickly realized people will take advantage of that because they believe you because you didn't do a good enough job of articulating what was included in that. So that was my problem. But then as you start to figure out what those clients typically need, and that's the subscription, right? That's what they're really looking for. They're looking for the bulk of it. And then if you have those one-off projects, you can flat rate those. You can have a separate subscription or have something that covers that as long as you know your numbers. Because I'll tell you, sometimes marketing costs for a lot of firms is big. For me, I work in a niche industry where nobody's going to sign with me off of Instagram. It's just not going to happen. But it does for some other industries. But for sports and entertainment, they need somebody that's already been vouched for 2 or 3 or 4 other times. And so for us, oftentimes the marketing cost is really looking like something different, but the metrics are really the key thing. And so, Kimberly, maybe I'm doing too much work on the interior of the business. I'm good with that. If I can get rid of a few hours.
Well, I'm not saying, I think
hero.
that's the part that makes subscriptions amazing, right? You do work on the business. You can iterate, you can tweak. It's just that I think we get so overly fixated on hourly. And like, I'm the same. My first subscription, I literally said it was $500. And I was like, yeah, I'll do all the things. And fun fact, it was in the sports industry. And which I don't always talk about, but, and they said yes, very fast. But but it's now like lessons learned is you can package it in a way that is profitable day one. You just have to build it out that way. Doesn't mean it's sustainable day one. It's just going to be profitable. It means like if you're $99 a month, you're not sustainable with one client, right? You need to hit a client threshold, but at least you can say, well, at this client, I have 10% profit because I built that into my pricing structure and my scoping, which I think is kind of what everyone here is talking about.
Yeah. I think it's important to differentiate tracking time versus managing time because they're not the same thing. Like I don't track time, but I manage the heck out of it. Like I don't let any clients or potential clients schedule more than 15 minutes with me at a time. Schedule 15 minutes with me at a time. And if something's going to take more than 15 minutes, I send them a one-time use link that's either 30 or 60 minutes, right? And so like I'm managing my time. If I think a task is going to take me an hour to get through this MSA, of course, nothing does now with AI, which we'll talk about maybe if we have time, then I will block that on my calendar. And if I finish it early, I move on to the next thing that's blocked, right? So like I'm managing my time and I'm thinking about my time, but I'm not thinking time equals money. And Brandon, to what you're doing, what I've suggested to lawyers as they transition from hourly to subscription is if you're used to tracking your time, that's okay. And this does sort of train the new neural pathways. You just think about less time equals more money. Less time equals more money. And so track the time. But then it's not how do I spend more time on that and make more money? It's how does that 1 hour task become a 45 minute, 30
that's the difference. That is the difference. Is the entire, you can't just like kind of half-ass a subscription practice. Your entire practice has to be focused on efficiency because margin comes from efficiency, and that is 100% diametrically opposed to the traditional law firm. And so if you're like, oh, I think I'll just like dabble with this, fine, but like you have to build the systems around that section of your practice because you have to be focused on efficiency. So like I'm a little jealous of Brandon still tracking his time because I'm like, I'm with Kim. I gave it up. I was like, I hate tracking time. I'm done with this. And now I'm circled all the way back to being like, gee, we're doing this like unit pricing now and like trying to figure out labor costing. And I'm going to need people to tell me, did this take 30 minutes or 2 hours? Because the scope should be different based, if we consistently see a difference in the way we expected it to go. And I'm like, oh, gee, if we were doing that, I could have those units available to see, right? So, but that's because it's all efficient.
Here's what I would say as you're thinking about that too, and this for everyone else too, it's like maybe instead define what you want your project scopes to be. So the other way that I've thought about it is instead of having my scopes be anything, my project scopes are a month. Like everything is meant to get done in a month. If not, right, like that's how I'm scoping a project. So like, for example, a document review could be an hour, that's a week. If something takes 2 weeks, it's a month. Like I just create these processes around it. And then I can add other value to bulk it up if I feel like, it needs to be. But if we move in that direction, instead of like saying, I'm gonna put it all and figure out how much it is, just say, okay, what can you get done in this 3-hour deep working session, a 90-minute deep working session? This is going to take three deep working sessions. That's it. It's 2 projects. Let's break it up. Because I think the other thing about that gets us into this space is because we've always said we're divorce lawyers, or we help you like adopt a child, we help you open the business or whatever. And instead you're like, no, we're not. We're helping you have a happy new family. And what does that look like? And like, how do we take it from it being a divorce to all the minutia that it actually takes to get there?
Yeah.
And sometimes we're just too big on our project size.
Yeah.
And so like, if the reason I've divorced it from time is because I flipped to say, well, I want my projects to all be about this size. Right.
Yeah.
So I have some, and then the efficiencies behind the scenes, but yeah.
And we could go deep on like, man, right now we're like really focused on like, how many days was this open? Because the more projects you have open, the more psychic drain you have on your team trying to manage all of these projects. So like just shrinking the days of something being open is one of the things we're like working on shrinking down so that we can be more efficient and functionally make more money, because we can churn that flywheel faster, because we aren't just like, oh, the thing is still there and we're waiting, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, you're right. The efficiency is the entire game. Because, you know, as traditional hourly billers, you're thinking about how we need to do some extra legal research just to be safe. If you're doing a repetitive thing that you can do a subscription on, for example, we call it the athlete LLC, just setting up a loan out company for an athlete, that may take us 45 minutes. The longest part of it is talking to the client about what that entails, how to utilize it, and those type of things. We have a video. People want to ask the questions. And so I can't automate that, but I can automate darn near everything else. And if I can automate that, that means that 45 minutes really goes to about 30. And with my staff, I'm not doing a whole lot of it anymore. And that's great. That means we can take on more of it. You make up the difference between that hourly billing by having an extra client or 2 or 3 or 10, depending on what your subscriptions look like. And again, if that takes me a week to get all of the documents back from the Secretary of State and emailed out, that's fantastic. Right now, we're working on, when those documents come back, how we automate the email with the bucket of everything, or the link that says, here's all your documents, here's your welcome package, and here's the video, so I don't have to have that follow-up phone call with them afterwards. If that's all it takes, that's a pretty good deal, right? And then you can automate a lot of those things. The efficiency is the real key. And I know that some lawyers are going to freak out because it sounds like a lot more technology use, and it is. But if you're willing to invest the time and effort into that, I think we're all on the same page, where you just have to get as much done as you can. It might be upfront work, but you're only going to do that work once or twice. You're not going to.
Somebody's watching this and being like, "Oh, I don't like that. That's not. We're in a service-based industry. I should be talking to the clients. I shouldn't be sending them a automated anything." And no, like, I will just tell you, 6 ways from Sunday, the number of times I have clients be like, "You are so on top of it. Oh my gosh, your emails are amazing. This system is so clear and easy to use." People appreciate when you are efficient and have a system and guide them through something, versus that email's been in your inbox for 2 weeks and you haven't had time to get back to it because you insist on talking to everyone and handling everything, being a type A control freak attorney, which most of us are. So like, embracing that is really going to serve the clients really well.
There's a hard thing for attorneys who've been billing their time for a long time to understand, but the quicker a client gets something, the more valuable it is.
Yes.
And it can't be manual and be quality and quick. But if you automate and if you find ways to streamline processes, then it can be quick and still quality, which brings us to the technology portion of the conversation in the last 15 minutes. We've been talking about efficiency and we talk about automation, but like, how the heck are we even doing this? And Kim, it is okay to talk about FIDU as well as part of this conversation. That is totally fine. And also, because Kim, you've been teaching lawyers how to do this for a long time. Jess, I know you'll always answer lawyer questions. And Brandon, I see you've been doing stuff on My Legal Academy, to teach lawyers how to do this too. So, I mean, feel free to talk about that stuff too in part of this technology conversation and how lawyers, they're convinced. What tech should I use? How should I do it? So, whomever,
Kim,
just,
go.
that's
You go.
Yeah.
I want to hear. I want to hear about
I feel
Fidoo.
like, well, I'll say, okay, without even saying Fidoo, I'll get into Fidoo, but I'll say, what do you need? You need to embrace technology. I think just like taking a step back, what Jess was saying, the people I see that aren't successful drop it because you didn't commit to it. You have to commit to it because it is a shift. It's a complete shift in your business model. The way you operate it must change. And it's not an overnight magic bullet, but you reap the rewards month after month, client after client, quarter after quarter, year after year. And so getting started, if you want your get a payment processor, a subscription is not a payment, right? A subscription model is more than just simply taking the money, but that is an easy path. I mean, you need to have something behind the scenes that creates automations and project manages pieces of work. I think you need to take clients out of email. I think you need to bring clients in a place that you can streamline the way you're delivering the service, because a subscription is about retention, right? Like if you get a new client in and then that other client leaves, you're having too much what we call in subscription world churn, or just said attrition, right? You're just losing too many people. So you want to think about the technology that helps you automate a lot of the things you do, and I think most people have it today. Some type of practice management, some type of automation tool, some type of, client communication tool, and a way to get paid. And then those things need to work together. I mean, and that's where Fidoo came in, right? It was, I piecemealed, I band-aided, I've tested probably almost every tech tool on the market. I have put things up on my own and tried it out. And then was like, it was just, my tech team. Like I was putting it together in the early days that it just was too much. And so Fidoo came out of wanting to create a really easier, it's not a zero work way, but it is an easier way to take your knowledge and then create it in a streamlined way to focus on delivery and not simply just payment. So, but I can answer any of those questions, but that's how I would do. And of course I would say grab Fidoo, because it's a platform built specifically for subscription and flat fee businesses.
I used to use Clio once, at the time. I don't know if they do now, but they didn't have a subscription payment option. So eventually it just got to be I couldn't use Clio. So I actually built everything in Airtable as far as CRM and managing all of the data. And then as far as customer facing, we have been using a WordPress website with WooCommerce, which has many problems, and I am now seeking other options. I'm looking at Sweet Dash as one, just because Kim, I was like, preach, everything is band-aided together, Frankenstein machine. Absolutely, that is a thing. And then everything is connected in the background with Zapier. So lots of email automations with Active Campaign and Zapier and things like that. Brandon, what are you doing?
Yeah, so one, we use every AI software known to man, because oftentimes it can draft things better than I can, as long as the prompts are good. And I've been on ChatGPT, thanks to Sam, for day 2, I think, that it was out. So we've really embraced that. I have legitimately everything AI related, but ours, we don't actively advertise the subscription base, because we found that when we advertise some things in the sports entertainment world, you get a lot of the weird fans. The season ticket holder fans don't reach out to you. It's the crazy guy that has all the autographs on his hat that reaches out to you, and I don't want to talk to him anymore. Heck of a nice guy, but stay at the stadium. And so for our subscription base, typically it's done through email. We use Practice Panther as our billing software. Legitimately, I love Practice Panther, but all we do is our time entries and our billing through there, because frankly, that's really all I need it for. And from there, a lot of Zapier, a lot of Frankensteining, we're Google Suite firm. And so when we upload a document into that client folder, they have access to the entire client folder. So we don't put a unfinished product in there. When they have a contract that, for example, an independent contractor agreement for a at-home chef or a nanny or something, we do that internally, and then we upload it to the client folder. They automatically get an email that says, hey, your independent contractor agreement is ready. And we're working on getting that for DocuSign for some of our clients. They just say when it's finished, send it out and have her sign it. And so when we do that, now it'd be great if we could just automate some of those things. But really what we look for are the workarounds that we don't necessarily have to do it on our own, right? So if that means I can put something in a client folder and I know it's going to go out to the client, they're going to get a reminder until they look at it, and they're going to be able to have that thing signed. That's about 4 steps less than I need to do. And that means I can go enjoy my weekend rather than waiting around for a nanny to sign her independent contractor agreement before I can go to the movies. I want to.
Well, I'm going to tell you, come check out Fidoo because
I know. I'm like, I think.
But I'm like,
look
yeah.
at Kim's stuff.
By the way, it's already up. Like I already have your webpage.
I was like, this is kind of we do. But like, yeah, my tech stack is Clio, clearly Fidoo, payment processors, so Confido and LawPay, Stripe as well because it is what it is. Calendly.
Yep, Calendly. I forgot about Calendly.
And we had Notion, although I'm moving off of it, and we're a Google Suite, we're Google Workspace users as well. I'm sure similarly, there's like a ton more. Oh, and then CRM. Like, so I think about it like, what is the tool to take them through the journey? Sales CRM, email marketing ConvertKit, right? Then you go to, I use a separate CRM, Pipedrive, then ConvertKit, ConvertKit, Pipedrive, then Fidoo, Clio, and then like some of the other business stuff behind the scenes. But that's what we use to do exactly that. Yeah. To take
Mine's super similar. It's like ActiveCampaign, Airtable, CRM, Airtable.
Yeah, and frankly,
and WooCommerce, you said.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're working through
with
Go
Stripe.
High Level right now. Little more cumbersome, I think, but we're in it, so we're going to use it. I use Notion internally. We use Loom. We use a bunch of different recording softwares. But frankly, the place that I'm getting all of my tech advice from is my legal academy, like you had mentioned, Matt. That it's one of those things where it helps you build out your firm, but their free content is able to provide you a lot of inside use cases and how those things are applicable. I'm not a personal injury attorney. I don't do estate planning like a lot of lawyers do that are in that space. So oftentimes I see it, I look at it and I go, not for me. But it's good to know what's out there because then I can see and compare. I like what Gavel's doing. I've
sponsor of my podcast. Just
and they're great. And that's frankly why I even looked at them. Was I had already started to look at them, and when we did the podcast, I went, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to jump on board. Some of these things are really solid, and it just takes a little bit of effort. You're not going to find something that you sign up for and then it takes all your worries away. Therapy doesn't do that. What makes you think Gavel or somebody else is going to do that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, also, like, having the right technology is not the thing, right? Like, if you have a bad plan, a bad subscription, no amount of tech is going to help you. Like, I had so many conversations in the early days, including with Kim in a conference room at CleoCon, just like showing people my plan and being like, poke holes in this. What am I doing wrong? Right? Like you gotta get a good plan together because garbage in, garbage out too.
You know, and I'm glad you brought that up because one good way to find out what you need in your subscription is ask people. What you think is not always great. Ask your target clients. I called basketball players that were former clients and I said, hey, looking back at your rookie year, what would you have needed from anybody? Like, what would you have paid for? And they would say, oh man, back then I needed this. I shouldn't have made that decision. And they'll walk you through. And I could ask, would you have paid for that solution? Would you have known that you were going to pay for that? What would you have paid for it? And they would say early on, gosh, I probably would have overpaid for that. Well, how about if you think you're underpaying, right? And you start working with some people where they're happy to provide you the advice. You're not going to be embarrassed when you ask about how much value is this, and they go, I don't even know what that is, man. I wouldn't pay for that. Even if it's what you think is the most important thing, it may not be the thing that the market wants.
Yeah. Way to bring it back to subscriptions, Brandon. But I'll just chime in quickly on the tech stack conversation because we got 5 more minutes left here. I'm up to 43 different pieces of technology that I'm using, but I'm also including platforms. So Slack and Discord,
Sure.
right? I'm including Overture and Lexamica, which are referral-based platforms. So like including those platforms, which I think of as technology, there's not necessarily an ongoing fee with them, but I consider that as part of like my tech stack, right? Jess, before you go to Sweet Dash, we should have a conversation because there are pros and cons.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the pros do outweigh the cons, but I think you really got to consider the cons because I'm not in love with it.
Okay.
So, well, and I'm going to tell you to come look at Fidoo.
I know, I'm good.
I checked mine. Mine are 34. I have 34 subscriptions. I just looked them at list.
That's funny.
So yeah, I mean, I have a beast of a tech stack and a lot of things that people are saying. And Gavel and 650, which are sponsors of my podcast around there. I have a CLE that I talk about like 80 AI tools. And I mean, but the one that I use more than any of the other ones is Paxton. So I'm throwing that out there as like, other than Calendly and Google Workspace, I find myself in Paxton as the
I don't know what that
most
is. What is that?
Paxton AI, it's just a legal AI assistant. That's a totally different conversation. But I like to use legal specific ones. I do use Claude and Perplexity as well. I just stopped using ChatGPT because the context went like even I don't use Claude very much anymore because Paxton plugs and plays with them and has a proprietary legal large language model. So the AI tools, Gavel is integrating AI now. So like instead of having to go in and manually create your logic workflows, like Gavel Blueprint, I had an episode with Dorna on the podcast about how they're using AI so to get you closer to the automation in less amount of time, which we all value as subscription-based business model folks as well. So yeah, there's a lot of tech out there. I echo that it's not going to solve all your problems, but finding the right tools can definitely help. And you don't need everything on day one. So if you're at a firm, you're thinking about leaving to start a subscription-based law practice, which is the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. It's hard, but it's easy to switch from billable hour to subscription by burning the boats and starting something new. You don't need all the tech on day one. I just started with Stripe and the Illinois Institute of Continuing Legal Education document database and automation platform called Formula. That's it. That's all I had to get started. And I just added on as I went. So you don't need it all from day one. Start getting that recurring revenue. And then it's easy to understand what your spend can be.
And just remember, you were a 1L once who didn't know how to be a lawyer either. You are a person who signed up to do something that you had no idea what you were doing, and you got through it and you figured it out. You are that person. You can do this.
So that might be your final takeaway, Jess. But I was just going to say for the panelists, final takeaways and where can folks find you, follow up with you, follow you, etc.
Yeah, I'll jump in here.
Go. I'm done.
You can. The takeaway for me is that you can always do something, but the important step is to take the first one. Right. The only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So you got to jump in there and do the one thing. If that means that you look up any of us, that's a good first step because the first step builds momentum. So just start somewhere. You're not going to be at a $1 billion subscription legal service platform until you get the first one. Start with the first one, get to the second one, just work your way through it. Everything's a slog. Everything's hard work. If it was easy, everybody would already have it. So work on it. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me anywhere in Los Angeles. If you're at a worldwide sports event, I'll probably be there. Super Bowl week, Final Four, NBA Summer League, spring training. I'm everywhere, but typically LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can find me at my website, leopoldus.com. And otherwise, I look forward to speaking with anybody, email, text message, smoke signals. Any way you can get a hold of me, I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff.
And I'll say my takeaway would be, just pitch it. Like, I think don't get in the weeds, don't get caught in all the things, just talk to the people that might be interested in it. I think the time is now, or it was already. And we already had things pushing our industry, and we didn't get to the Gen AI conversation, but Gen AI is here. It's not going away, and it's going to change how we work. It's not going to replace us, but it will continue to change how we work. And that incentivizes efficiency and effectiveness and really thinking about how to process out what you do. So just get started one step at a time and literally forget about building the subscription, pitch it and see if someone says yes, and then you can work. You're doing the work of the subscription today. So like you can build out the process behind the scenes to make it work. And then you can find me. I'm on all social media, usually K Bennett Law. Fidoo app is on social, and I have a subscription guide. So you can go to FidooLegal.com, maybe /freebies, I think. And then there's a subscription guide that kind of takes you through some of we had pre-talked ethics or other things like that if you're thinking about it. And I'm happy to show you Fidoo. We do demos all the time. You'll book it, you'll meet me, and we can chat through what you're looking to do and see if we can help you.
Jess, you didn't say where people could find you, though.
Just throw my name in the Google machine. You'll find me somewhere. Birkenlaw.com.
And I'm Mathew Kerbis. I'm the subscription attorney. I have some things I got to read us out on in a second here. But if you also want to hear more from these panelists, I've had them all on my podcast. Kim, I've had twice. Episodes 1 for Kim and 65 for Fidoo. For Jess, that's episode 10. And for Brandon, it's episode 22. So www.lawsubscribe.com. And actually, if you just do / their last names or / Fidoo, you'll find them as well. So definitely deep dive on more to hear what they're all about. And all right. So you can find me at subscriptionattorney.com is the firm. Law Subscribed is the podcast. And yeah, the Google machine, the Gen AI machines, you'll find me. So with that, that's all the time we have for this discussion. I'd like to thank insert guests. I mean, Kim, Jess, and Brandon for joining me today.